Now joining us is another great friend of this show, Ami Horowitz, who joins us from the States. Ami, great to see you. How are you? I'm
doing very well. Thank you very much.
Well, it's good to have you. Good to have you back. You were on while I was away. I'm sorry, but I was very upset. How can Ami come on the show while I'm away, Ami? Honestly.
I was personally offended, actually, to be honest with you.
Of course you were. Of course you were. No, everyone did a great job. It was terrific. But you've now just finished a new film, a 30-minute film. Now, viewers will be able to watch that via Outsiders here on skynews.com.au on our new website, which is terrific, the full 30-minute film. I've watched it. It's fantastic. It's about Black Lives Matter, a subject we've talked about a lot. But first of all, we'll ask you some specific questions, but just tell us in general about the film, why you made it. We know why you made it, but the reception it's getting.
Yeah, look, I made it because obviously 2020, along with coronavirus, Black Lives Matter was probably the single biggest issue to be discussed, debated, that was embroiling our world, frankly, over that period of time. And what we have to understand is that what we're seeing in the United States, this racial-based identity politics is really becoming one of the most divisive issues that our country, and in fact, a lot of places in the world, are seeing. So it was important for me to document exactly what Black Lives Matter was, what they stood for. Because if you walked around and you saw the support they were getting, which was almost universal, certainly at the beginning, something didn't seem right to me. Something seemed off with the organization. So I wanted to go and embed myself for a year with the organization. I went to every major riot. I went to dozens of protests. I spoke with hundreds of protesters and rioters. And in fact, I even interviewed one of the original founders of Black Lives Matter to get a better sense of what this organization really was. And what I got from them was absolutely disturbing. And it's one thing to hear about their beliefs from people saying this is what they stand for. It's something very different to hear it from their own mouths. And that's what I did. I simply asked these people questions that the mainstream media refused to ask them. They weren't hiding the ball. They weren't trying to pretend they were something else. They were totally honest. But it took somebody like me asking the right questions to get this truly disturbing documentary that we released.
And Ami, you did it brilliantly, particularly there's chilling stuff with Melina Abdullah as one of the founders there that you talked to. I just want to play one clip from it. I don't want to spoil it all for viewers. We want people to go and watch the full 30 minutes. Just have a quick look at this, and then we'll comment on it.
Should we abolish the prison system?
Yes, we should get rid of it as we know it today.
Get rid of it?
Yes.
Black Lives Matter is not only committed to destroying our judicial infrastructure, they also want to destroy our economic infrastructure. Black Lives Matter's founders and most of their leadership are Marxists or direct opponents of any free market system.
We are trained Marxists. We are super versed on sort of ideological theories.
And this is the point, Ami. It's them saying it, it's not you.
Yeah, and that's the part which, I was always trying to certainly as I was filming this and before we released it, and I would hear the mainstream media's defense of Black Lives Matter by saying they're not Marxist. In fact, all of those, they would all come out and say, oh, it's false information, it's fake news. They're not against free market. They're not it is so ridiculously false on its face, but nobody asked them the questions. Look, what's the bottom line for Black Lives Matter? The bottom line is they wanted to see the destruction of all the systems in America, really the world, but they're starting with America. All the systems. That means the courts. That means the security establishment, the political establishment. They want it all to burn down, literally and figuratively, and then they want to rise from the ashes their own warped Marxist race-based classes and theology that they've been pushing, by the way, for many years. And we're seeing what Black Lives Matter has morphed into now, it's an even more virulent strain, right? This new strain is they've now infiltrated not just our political system. Now you see Congress people and now senators who are Black Lives Matter supporters. But you're also seeing our educational system through critical race theory, which is they are the modern progenitors of critical race theory. We would not have seen any of this in our schools and in our military. The military is now pushing CRT. You would not have seen any of this if it wasn't for the Black Lives Matter movement. They were able to take it and push it back into the front of our consciousness. And this is what is so damaging. They have infiltrated almost every level of the systems of America in order to take them down. I know it sounds like hyperbole. I know that it does. But just got to watch the documentary. They say it with their own words. This is what their goal is.
Rita.
Well, you're right. They've always been unashamed about their ideology and what their goals are, and yet the media has worked overtime gaslighting the public about what this group really stands for. And you mentioned their influence in politics and public institutions, the education sector, but the corporate world has really got behind this group, which again is unashamedly anti-capitalist. It's on their websites, it's in their manifesto, if you want to call it that. This is part of their mindset. So why are the corporates standing with Black Lives Matter?
Yeah, you know, I'll tell you what's been a long-standing lie, which is that corporations are conservative. It's absolutely, totally untrue. They're not left, they're not right, they're there to make money. And now, as it happens to be, much of the leadership now has become left. Certainly in the tech industry, the majority of the tech industry they're not just liberals, they're leftists. So that goes along with their agenda, but they're looking to make money. And they have been sold a bill of goods that what Black Lives Matter is preaching is resonating with the majority of the population. And they point to the true fact that Black Lives Matter is the single largest movement in the last 50 years in the United States. And they believe that most Americans believe in this, which is untrue, actually false. So they've kind of bought into it, A. B, the other part of the reason why corporations have bought into it, because they are deathly afraid of being targeted by Black Lives Matter. Conservatives, for the most part, have never really engaged in boycotts. It's not really part of their ethos. The left engages in it all the time, and they are deathly afraid to be painted as racist, or even worse, it's not enough not to be racist. You have to be anti-racist, right? Not enough not to be fascist, anti-fascist.
And yet, Ami, let's look at who the real racists are, who you highlight in the documentary. Just this quick grab about anti-Semitism within Black Lives Matter, and then we'll have to wrap it up. Just have a quick look at this from Ami's film.
While people living on the south side of Chicago don't seem to matter to BLM, there is a group of people who seem to matter very much to the organization, and it is deeply disturbing. Much of the Black Lives Matter leadership has taken on a distinct anti-Semitic flavor, including being outspoken supporters of the openly and unapologetically anti-Semitic Louis Farrakhan, and Patrisse Cullors, one of the founders of BLM, called for the destruction of the only Jewish state in existence.
So how on earth, Ami, is it that Jewish organizations support Black Lives Matter?
Of all the shame on the mainstream media in reporting Black Lives Matter and their involvement in the riots and so forth, the most shameful is the fact that they would never, ever report that anti-Semitism is in the bloodstream of Black Lives Matter. That Black Lives Matter, and I'm speaking again about the organization, not necessarily the people who agree or follow Black Lives Matter, but the organization is shamefully and disgustingly anti-Semitic. They literally targeted and burned down a Jewish neighborhood in the Fairfax district of Los Angeles that Melina Abdullah, one of the subjects of my documentary, was exhorting and pushing and leading. I was at riots and I saw them attack synagogues. I filmed them attacking synagogues and scrawling their hate across the Jewish institutions. It is absolutely shameful. It's horrific, and I can't stress this enough. It is part of BLM's DNA, and why the Jewish leftist organizations follow them. it's a whole different. We have to spend an entire hour discussing that. That's,
Well, we're going
that's shameful in and of itself.
It is, Ami, and we will do that, I promise. But in the meantime, I urge people to watch Ami Horowitz's documentary on Black Lives Matter. You can see it here on skynews.com.au and look at this interview and the links on Outsiders. Ami, great to see you. We'll see you again soon. Thanks, mate.
Pleasure.